The Cincinnati Bengals have their new defensive coordinator. The New York Jets have their new head coach. And a few other teams have made some moves we're going to talk about next, up here on No Buts About It. I said up here. I don't know what that means. I'm not up anywhere. I'm in Indiana. It's flat here. Truss is in his basement in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Well.
Whoa. Are you not in your Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania basement?
No, I'm talking about up. I mean, if we're talking about up and you're
Like
in Texas,
north?
yeah, you're north. You're up.
Okay, I'm north, but I'm thinking like altitude.
Hey, you're above the ground.
That's true.
Just saying. All right, go ahead. Continue.
Well, Truss is below the ground in his Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania basement, and Stan is somewhere in Connecticut. I think.
A basement.
Stan the Jet fan, also in a basement. So I guess I am the one who's up.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
There we go. Absolutely
wild. You're more up than we are.
I started at the bottom. Now I'm here in the second floor of a building.
All right,
but
I'm just gonna.
Yep, that was for you, Trust.
Right.
Stan the Jet fan is joining us today because the New York Jets have finally made a huge move. They have signed a head coach after an expansive search that went near and far. They brought in Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, and I'm kind of surprised. I thought that this would be a hire that was immensely loved by all Jets fans, but I've come to find out that I was wrong. I saw a lot of people are actually really upset with this hire. So Stan the Jet fan's going to kind of take us through the process a little bit, give us his thoughts, and then his expectations. So Stan, why are Jets fans not excited about this hire? First of all, because like Aaron Glenn, that's like the number 2 guy in this coaching cycle, it seemed like, behind Ben Johnson.
Yeah, no, Aaron Glenn was definitely one of the biggest names going into this coaching cycle, but I think to a lot of Jets fans, it reminds you of a different defensive coordinator who hasn't been coached before coming to this team in Robert Saleh. Another big issue a lot of Jets fans have with him is that they really wanted this offensive guru type guy. But my reaction is really, I don't think there was a home run hire in this cycle. Vrabel was the closest one to it. He went very early on in that process. And once Vrabel left, I mean, to me, I did think Glenn was probably the best option, maybe Mike McCarthy. I do understand and side with Jets fans who say there should have been a little bit more looking into guys like McCarthy specifically. Also, Liam Cohen never really got an interview with the Jets. And it's hard to know what happened in that room, why Mike McCarthy didn't look into the Jets, why Liam Cohen didn't look into them. But either way, as a fan, when you're looking at, 16, 17 different candidates coming in for interviews, it can be a little weird at times to see a guy like Mike McCarthy, who has mostly 10-win seasons under his belt, not getting that same look. My final take on this is I think it's a fine hire, and it's an expected hire. I don't think it's a home run, but it's definitely not a swing and a miss. The thing with these head coaches, hiring a first-time head coach, is you don't really know what they're going to look like. And with a first-time head coach, think about Saleh. A lot of Jets fans, they're thinking of all the bad stuff. But when Saleh came, all those same people were screaming and jumping for joy, right? They were saying Robert Saleh is the guy. He's such a great coach. We love that we're bringing him in. To me, I do see one big difference with Glenn and Saleh, and that was that Glenn, I think, is brought in less so because he's considered this defensive mind that Saleh was considered when he was brought into the Jets, and he's rather seen more as a locker room guy, a guy who can get the team to corral together, keep morale high, and keep the players energized into the season.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely seems. I've talked to some Lions fans who have said he's really more of the leader in their opinion over Ben Johnson. And they love Ben Johnson. They think he's a great hire as well, but that Aaron Glenn is going to be the guy who can rally his troops together, that he had to do that already with all the injuries that happened to the Lions defense. But it just seems like Jet fans are just either, I don't know, they're just tired of going through this cycle and they're just kind of mentally preparing themselves for failure already. I mean, are you concerned with anything about Aaron Glenn that you've seen that he's done with the Lions?
A lot of people point towards the end of the season. Obviously, they were seen as a Super Bowl favorite, so anything less than reaching the Super Bowl is going to be considered a failure. But when I look at his final game, there were a lot of routes that were run on their defense time after time, especially the kind of the lower parts of the field. Jaden Daniels attacked that really well. And throughout the game, even as late as the third quarter, Jaden Daniels was still able to hit those slant routes and get his guys down low. And a lot of people were very upset with that. They said, well, how can you hire this coordinator to be your head coach when he can't defend this one specific type of route the entire game? The way I see it, I think a lot of it came down to personnel. But that being said, who knows? I mean, like I don't really look at that any different because if he had won that game and then the Jets, if he won the Super Bowl and the Jets hired him, every single fan would look very differently upon him. There was other failures the Lions saw. Jared Goff had a pretty poor game, so I'm not going to say that the defensive coordinator who had 7 starters and like 6 second string players injured, I don't think it was fully his fault. In fact, looking at the Lions and their injuries leading into that second or that final stretch of the season, I think it's very impressive that a coach was able to get good quality play for as many games as he did, considering he was looking at third, fourth string, undrafted free agent level players.
Yeah, and Chus, me and you sat down with Dion to talk about the Lions' defense ahead of their game against the Commanders, and Dion seemed pretty certain that Aaron Glenn staying in man coverage, which is what Glenn loves to run, would still work against the Commanders, and he didn't really seem to move away from that. Do you have any thoughts on what you saw there?
Yeah, I think the idea was there. Dion, I think, was right when it came to a lot of that, just because obviously, if it works, don't mess with it. So, like, during the game, I noticed that a lot of these guys in man-to-man coverage were just getting torched. I don't know how much of the game either of you two watched, but there was just a lot of plays where it just seemed like man-to-man coverage was just torched the entire time. I mean, Jaden Daniels had a show. I knew that he was confident going into this game, and the way that he plays in the pocket is just unbelievable for a rookie. But it was exactly how I feared it was going to happen, and the defense just couldn't figure out a way to stop it. Now, obviously, that's a defense. It could be a whole different. It's going to be a whole different approach when it's the head coach,
Right.
and depending on what he's more inclined to do, obviously he's probably going to be more inclined to work with the defensive coordinator rather than the offensive coordinator. I mean, Mike Tomlin for the Steelers is more of a defensive minded coach, so he's going to work with the defensive coordinator more than the offensive coordinator, have a little bit more say in the defense. So it'll be interesting to see how he changes up his play calling, especially after something like that. Now, Washington's been hot. So I mean, that's one thing that you can add to it. The Lions have had the 1 week or so off to prepare, and it just didn't end up working out. But I don't know. I mean, I think man-to-man coverage in some aspects isn't like a bad thing, especially how would you say that your secondary is, Stan?
We have good pieces on the secondary. We're losing one of the biggest ones, DJ Reed, this offseason. He said he doesn't want to re-sign with the team. So that switches up things. I think for the Jets, the biggest issue this season was we didn't have the pass rush we've had the last few seasons, right? We only really had 2 guys, in my opinion, who are starter-level players who were able to stay healthy throughout the entire season with Will McDonald and Quinnen Williams. So for a team that doesn't blitz at all, that puts a lot of pressure on the secondary, on the linebackers to kind of fill in the gaps there. One thing, when I'm looking at a newer system, if we go back just closer to the average level of blitzing in the league, I think the Jets could have a much better defense. Quincy Williams was fantastic in blitzing this season, but we weren't really using him that much. So I'd like to see more of that going forward. And I don't want to cut you off if you had more to say there, Trust. Did you or?
No, I was just kind of building off of what going forward with the secondary. But yeah, no, I was just wondering because I feel like at that point, kind of bouncing off of that mindset of with the secondary having like a man-to-man coverage most of the time, especially with a defensive-minded coach. I mean, it's probably going to be one of those things for the Jets that they're probably going to shake it up, hopefully. I mean, I would hope that, in the offseason he goes and gets some pass rushers and some players to enhance the defense so it's not just man-to-man. I mean, the Lions thrived in that most of the season, but obviously, as you mentioned, like the Jets have some pieces. They have pieces, but there's some pieces that are still missing. And that's what we were expecting. But, work on those pieces, especially on the defense, build the defense the way that he wants it to be built. And then all of a sudden you could have a really good defense that could maybe mold into like a very man coverage type defense if these cornerbacks and whatnot are actually like able to, play good man-to-man coverage.
One thing you said a little bit earlier is that, a guy like Aaron Glenn, a first-time head coach, who again is not really seen as this defensive mind, is probably going to put a lot of his style on his DC and also his OC on that side of the ball. And that's another thing which I really like so far with Glenn. The biggest name in that DC conversation is Steve Wilkes, who I think is a good fit for the Jets in most ways. The only main issue I have with him is I'm not sure if he's able to keep with the more modern offenses. I haven't watched as much of the 49ers as I would have liked to get a full understanding of this. But that's going to be an interesting thing to see if he could take this Jets defense that took a major step back and get them back to where they need to be. And still, there's a lot of time before Steve Wilkes will get hired. Probably, I think it'll be at least a week if that hire even happens. But he's the main name you're seeing in that DC conversation. And in the OC conversation, Clint Kubiak is my favorite name. I think he's probably the second most likely to get the job, with Mark Brunell being the first. But I like the names I'm seeing so far with him. I think that's the biggest factor for me with a first-time head coach. Is he surrounding himself with good names? And I'm thinking back to Rob Saleh, right? A guy I can't stop thinking about the failure of that tenure. And with Robert Saleh, he had a really good OC out the gate. It's a little hard to look at it, considering we didn't really get any good from it. But Michael Floyd did a great job. And I think back to the 2022, season, the best, where he got Flacco, he got Josh Johnson, Mike White to have these great offenses. And even Zach Wilson had a good stretch. I want to say about 4 games after his injury when he came back. I'm being serious. That's the best stretch Zach Wilson's ever had and probably will ever have. And in retrospect, looking at the reports coming out of the team now that those people have moved on, we found out a lot of that was because LaFleur took a very heavy-handed approach. And the reason he was fired after that season is because Saleh didn't want to hear it. So having someone like Aaron Glenn, who is going to actually depend on his coordinators, that makes a big difference to me. And another issue with Saleh regarding coordinators, look at his next guy up, right? Nathaniel Hackett. He was a guy who they were trying to find people to babysit him at one point, right? Like this was never a winning formula. And Saleh never really got that right. He had a good guy in the beginning, but then he kicked that guy out because he didn't want to hear what that guy had to say. Right, LaFleur wanted to get rid of Zach Wilson, which we all know now would have been the best move. Saleh didn't want to hear it, and look where that got him.
I'm laughing because there were multiple, like, the Zach Wilson cycle of, okay, we're benching him, this guy sucks. Oh, he comes back, has 3 really good games. He might be the guy, and then he just sucks again. Like, that was the Zach Wilson saga over and over.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the one that I'm referring to, he got a win against the Steelers. He had a 40-17 win against the Dolphins, and I think there's a few other wins. Then we had a bye week. We were, I think, tied for the first spot or the second spot in the division, and then he lost 10-3 to the New England Patriots, and that was the game where he said it wasn't his fault that he couldn't put up more than 3 points. So that to me was something where I saw LaFleur able to do a lot. Going back, I know this isn't really a great topic right now. Obviously, LaFleur's not with the team, but LaFleur told Zach Wilson, if you don't see your first 2 reads, just run. Don't even look for the 3rd read. Just run. That was back when Elijah Moore was freaking out because he was never getting the pass. And I think Zach Wilson, multiple games where he had maybe 10 completions or less. So it was a rough time, but the fact that LaFleur was able to get something out of that, get 4 wins out in the first 6 weeks or whatever that was, and then Robert Saleh still moved on from him at the end of the season, that to me is something I don't expect from Glenn.
Okay. Yeah, I think this is a good hire. I think Jets fans should give him a chance. Obviously, he's going to be very dependent on that offensive coordinator position. But it sounds like you're excited about that as well. If we don't have any more thoughts, I actually am going to change the order up here just because we've been talking about him a lot. Let's talk about this guy, Robert Saleh. The Jacksonville Jaguars are bringing him in for a second head coaching interview, according to reports. And on top of that, they fired GM Trent Baalke, which in context, I think is actually an important move. Originally, when they fired Doug Peterson, they did not fire Trent Baalke. However, there was a really awkward Zoom interview where the Jacksonville Jaguars owner, whose name is escaping me right now, and Trent Baalke were in the interview with this reporter, and the reporter asked, like, "Hey, if there was a head coach that you really wanted," and they said they'd take the job, the only contingent was you had to fire the GM. Would you do it? And the owner says yes, while Trent Baalke is sitting there in the same Zoom call. Well, now Trent,
what is it? It's Khan. His last name's Khan.
is it Khan?
Khan.
Okay.
Yeah, I knew that because his child is Tony Khan. Tony Khan owns AEW.
Okay.
Which is
Shad? Is it Shad Khan?
It might be. Yeah, Shad. Well, they just call him Shad. That's like his nickname.
Okay.
It's like
Shahid.
Shahid.
Shahid
It's like
Khan.
Shahid Shad Khan. Like
Shad
if you look,
Khan.
yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, Shad Khan said that he would.
Father of Tony Khan.
Shad Khan, father of Tony Khan, owner of the Jacksonville Jaguars, said he would fire Trent Baalke. Trent Baalke has been fired. So Stan, I'm going to go back to you here because you know Robert Saleh well. Do you think that they fired Trent Baalke to bring in Robert Saleh, and this is something Robert would want?
I wouldn't understand that. To me, Robert Saleh can be a good head coach once again, but he needs to take a step back and understand where he went wrong. And where he went wrong was leadership. He was not the leader of men you see in guys like Dan Quinn. You see in good teams, right? Every good team you think of, even Nick Sirianni with the Eagles. Think of the way his players rally behind him, right? Think of the way Sirianni keeps his staff together and intact. And with the coaches we've complained about on this show before, you often see the opposite. They don't keep things in order, especially when things are losing. And that to me is the worry with Robert Saleh. Another thing is he did not do too much to develop a good quarterback on that team. He didn't put a good system around Zach Wilson. And one of the issues we find out about LaFleur down the line is that Robert Saleh and LaFleur kept on forcing Zach Wilson to do too much. And that's why in 2022 he said, hey, if you don't see those first two reads, just run for it, right? Those are the issues with Robert Saleh. He's very stubborn and he doesn't take responsibility for his actions. If he has learned the lesson from in the last few months and he's going to actually take responsibility and keep his house in order, he can be a great head coach. I really do believe that. I just don't know if he's there yet.
It just seems like, I mean, obviously having a head coach come in with a new GM or with the same old GM, that's kind of a hard thing to do. And so I think the Jaguars kind of handled that poorly from the beginning by firing Doug Peterson and not firing Trent Baalke. Because normally you want the whole regime to be in line with each other from the GM down to the quarterback. But now it's almost as if whoever the Jaguars really wanted made this demand, and all the other big names are gone, except for like Mike McCarthy maybe. So it makes me wonder if Robert Saleh made that demand. And do you think that there was something that could have happened with Joe Douglas, where Robert Saleh was just like, I want my own GM, I want my own guy that I can help get, and we'll figure it out together.
I mean, I just wouldn't understand why that would be the play. Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, I think, put together. Robert Saleh had the most losses or third most losses of coach to coach that many games, right? Like he had a terrible tenure with the Jets, despite having some really great talent on the team. So I wouldn't understand the Jaguars thinking if they're like, okay, we really need Robert Saleh, that's our guy. I think it could be possible that they realize there's a lot of really good GM candidates out there. And maybe some of those names are a little more interesting. One guy to keep an eye on is Lance Newmark, right? He was brought in by the Jets. Everyone thought he was going to get announced as the new GM. alongside Aaron Glenn today. But instead, what we saw is Lance Newmark is not really the guy they're pairing with. They interviewed two other guys today, so maybe they're just seeing that there's so many better GM options out there than Balky, who's been there for quite a long time and just hasn't brought sustained success.
Yeah, they have missed on a lot of drafts, and I think Trent Baalke was there in 2020. I could be wrong, but that 2020 draft, it's like impressive how badly they did. If that wasn't him, I apologize, but if you ever want to feel good about your team's drafting, go look up the Jaguars 2020 draft. Um, anyway, Chus, do you have any thoughts on that before we move on here?
No, I don't. Not
Okay.
really. Yeah. I mean, I could ramble and different things like that, but I think I'm good.
I didn't know. I know Tony, you just had opinions on Tony Khan.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, a lot of this head coaching is a lot of these coaches are gonna be on your opinions and stuff like that. I don't really have, like, I don't know what's gonna end up being the best for the Jets or what's gonna end up being the best for the Bengals. So I'll give the best of my ability to what I can do because you guys are the specialists.
Yeah, he's a Steelers fan. They don't change these types of things as much as
we don't. Yeah, they don't fire anybody. They just kind of let everybody go.
But well, the Cincinnati Bengals have made some moves. They made a move on Monday, I believe it was, to hire Scott Peters as their offensive line coach, which I just want to say this guy is my favorite hire that they have done so far. So Jim McNally, I believe, is the famous Bengals offensive line coach, top guy that the Bengals have ever had coaching the offensive line. And he's been a fan of Scott Peters for a long time. And he tweeted, "Scott Peters will make the Bengals great again. Mark my words, he is a hands-on, smart, updated with the latest techs on pass and run, will develop young guys to their max. He is the top new O-line coach in the NFL, way beyond all expectations." And then in 2015, so this isn't a new thing. This isn't just McNally saying, "Hey, I'm going to support whoever the Bengals O-line guy is." 2015, McNally said, "If you think you know everything about pass blocking and punching, you don't. This is the best in the world, and it's hard for me to say that. I'm biting off a lot here. This effing guy is the best." So we've got Scott Peters. Like, I'm excited for this guy. And then he also was the assistant coach for Bill Callahan with the Cleveland Browns. So he's got some big names behind him, which I know Frank Pollock was behind, was underneath Bill Callahan for a while. As well, that's going to get confusing, Brian and Bill, but Bill Callahan for a while. But I just, Scott Peters, like, he's got this energy. I mean, look at this guy. This guy looks like he could still line up on the line. There, he's like ready to go. He's yelling. He's tough. He's gruff. And I was doing some research on him. I found out he is a 2-time world championship jiu-jitsu athlete.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I don't know how that'll translate to the football field, but it'd be interesting to see how it could.
Well, I'm interested in the hand techniques.
Oh,
I'm wondering how that can be used because jiu-jitsu, if you're not familiar, and I already confirmed this with the internet, it uses the opponent's momentum against them more than like your actual strength. So while I do think the Bengals have some strong guys on their team, obviously, whenever they're outmatched, how can that offensive lineman kind of win that with hand placement? And can we focus on that hand technique to give us the upper hand? Because that could be a big thing. You know, if you can use his own momentum against him and you don't necessarily have to be the strongest guy in the battle, and you just use the momentum to gain leverage, I think that's huge. That's really exciting. He was last year, he was the New England Patriots offensive coordinator or offensive line coach, excuse me. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Patriots offensive line, not good. Nobody's saying that. Literally, but. They also had no talent outside Mike Onwenu. And they still finished after Drake May came in, which was week 6, I think. They finished with better stats in some places than the Bengals offensive line with less talent. Big one was quarterback hit rate. Drake May got hit less than Joe Burrow in that time frame. So obviously that's a big thing. You don't want your quarterback getting hit. So I'm hoping Scott Peters can come in, bring that energy, get these guys riled up. We got some former Pro Bowlers on this team. We got Orlando Brown Jr., Pro Bowler. Alex Kappa, former Pro Bowler. Ted Karras, Pro Bowler. Cordell Volson is the weakest link, but he's on his rookie contract. Let's bring in some dogs, okay? And get these guys going. Joe Burrow's never, I've said this before, and I'm going to just keep saying it until it happens. Joe Burrow's never getting hit again. That being said, I am concerned about his draft ability. The Patriots took some really weird swings on the 2024 draft when it came to the O-line. And I'm concerned. I wonder how much of a say Scott Peters had here, but they took some very, very like these were guys that were supposed to go in the like last day or like not even get drafted at all. And they took them in the 3rd and 4th round in Caden Wallace and Layden Robinson. So I kind of am a little worried about that, but that's my only concern. Other than that, I'm super excited about Scott Peters. After all the things I've said, do you guys have any thoughts about Scott Peters?
I want to know what color belt he is in jiu-jitsu.
I can look into. I will look into that for you, Chus.
Thank you, because I have a friend currently actively participating in jiu-jitsu, and I don't remember what belt she is, but she told me the other day, but it made me think of it. I wonder what belt color he is.
Okay, Stan.
Yeah, the Patriots part of his tenure was not really a successful one. But looking at the Browns as well, I'm not too sure how long he's been with them. But they've had a few whiffs on their O line, and I know one of the more recent ones I was thinking about because I kind of want him to come to the Jets now is Jedrick Wills Jr. Right? He was a 1st-round pick, and then at some point he refused to play for them. And I don't know the situation there. I really don't know too much about Scott Peters, but outside of the people talking so highly about him, has there been any successful seasons he's had under his belt in terms of O-line?
Well, so last year with the Patriots was his first year as an O-line coach. He's been with the Browns as an assistant O-line coach underneath Bill Callahan, which Bill Callahan wasn't the offensive line coach for the Browns last year. He went down to Tennessee to help his son Brian. Bill, though, had a ton of success with the Browns. Like their offensive line has been amazing for up until like last year, and they had a ton of injuries last year. So I hope again. Frank Pollock was also a Bill Callahan guy, but I'm hoping that we get this younger guy who can bring this energy, and hopefully he's learned some of these coaching techniques from Bill Callahan that work really well with the team. I mean, the hard thing about the Patriots coordinators and coaches, we're going to talk about another one here in a minute, but like Gerard Mayo hired these guys. They got brought in with Gerard Mayo, and then they got fired with Gerard Mayo. So it's like they never really got a chance, you know? And Gerard Mayo never really got a real chance. Everyone knew, I think, that Gerard Mayo was likely a 1-year rental if Mike Vrabel said he was coming back to coaching. Everyone knew that Mike Vrabel was going back to the New England Patriots, right? Was anyone shocked by that?
No. I just feel for Mayo. He was put in that spot, just get fired. So,
yeah. But Stan, what do you have you? I guess you kind of know Frank Pollock a little bit. What would be some worries that you would have from another guy from Brian Callahan's group or Bill Callahan's group? Because like I know Frank Pollock, you know Frank Pollock. Did you like Frank Pollock?
I'm not. I don't really know too much about like
You're
his
not
coaching
familiar.
ability. So yeah,
Okay.
I only really started looking at positional coaches more recently. So
Okay. That's understandable. That's understandable. He was a big Mekhi Becton guy with the Jets, so
yeah,
I
I mean, I
thought,
do know that in his time with the Jets, we never really had a great O line, but before him, we had one of the better O lines in the league for a bit. So
yeah. So I'm hoping he takes the good of the Bill Callahan tenor. But I
yeah,
mean, like, I just look at this picture and I'm just ready to go. That's exciting, man.
This
That
picture,
this
I'm
pic
excited.
this picture, yeah, he's just like, man, it looks like he's a black belt, by the way, Chus.
Dang. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
He is a world
Just
champion, so.
yeah, that would probably make sense. If he's a two-time world champ, he's definitely a black belt then.
But
I mean,
let's
if he was like an orange belt going up against these people and like dogging them, there's an issue. So,
the let's move on over to the other line, the defensive line. And we hired Jerry Montgomery for this position. He's the other New England Patriots coordinator. He was there for 1 year, got fired with Gerard Mayo, and now he's with the Bengals. And he was with the Patriots, or excuse me, he was with the Packers as a line coach before he went to the Patriots. And some names that he worked with would have been Kenny Clark, Devontae Wyatt, Dean Lowry, TJ Slayton, and Carl Brooks. Um, they're all pretty good players, I think. Right? Am I mistaken? Do any of you disagree?
no,
No?
I don't disagree. Yeah.
Stan, do you disagree?
Oh.
So I'm excited to see how he develops these guys. Main guy I'm looking at is Miles Murphy. I want to see what we can get out of Miles Murphy, former first round pick on the defensive line, and he just has not gotten any playing time. He's had some good moments when he's gotten a chance, but Lou just would not let him play. So I'm hoping Jerry Montgomery is able to develop him into something that is good. I mean, people are saying like, well, he had Kenny Clark to work with. Kenny Clark is a former first round pick. I mean, that's easy. Well, we've got a former first round pick on the line too that we need to, elevate a little bit. So that's what I'm hoping kind of works out for Jerry Montgomery. I don't really have a ton of thoughts on him. Not a super exciting hire. There are some things that worry me with him. There were a lot of Packers fans and Packers analysts that were happy when he left the Packers, which, that's always kind of concerning. But
I mean, you guys could have tried to get Matt Canada. I mean, that could have been really
for our
good.
defensive line,
Yeah.
I wanted your D-line coach that you guys aren't extending.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you got your guy.
I wanted Carl Dunbar. I just thought that'd be funny.
Well, but you got your guy.
That's true.
You got your guy. You should be invested. You shouldn't be worried about getting Dunbar.
I'm not. I'm willing to hear him out. I'm willing if he can turn Miles Murphy into something, I'll be happy.
What happens if the D-line cooks, but then your secondary is bad, like worse, like terrible, but you exchange it for like an amazing defensive line.
Well, our secondary is already bad. So
yeah, but like it becomes worse. Like they just have no focus and they're like really, really bad. Like position rank 32, like secondary, but like position rank like 1 or 2 defensive line.
Well, that would be on this next guy we're going to talk about, I think. Here.
Mm.
And this was a guy who I said months ago, and most Bengals fans said months ago, this is going to be the guy. This is probably going to be the guy. We want other people, but this is probably going to be the guy. And then it came out that the Bengals weren't even going to look at Robert Saleh and Dennis Allen. We were like, okay, this is definitely the guy. They already have their guy. And I was called a fool by fans of this college. I was called a moron by fools of this college. And yet I still rooted for their team. But I was called a fool because there was no way Al Golden was going to leave the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to return to the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, guess what? Our former linebackers coach turned Notre Dame defensive coordinator, national champion runner-up, is now the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator. And no one's apologized to me. No one has said, hey, Josh, you were right.
They're not going to. They're not going.
No, they're not going to. I know they won't. But I know in my heart. I was right. That's where it matters, folks. So yeah, Al Golden. I don't know. Yeah. Like I said, Scott Peters is the coach I'm most excited about. So my thing with Al Golden is I don't hate the hire. I hate the process that we went through to get him. And by that, I mean, we kind of did the opposite of what the Jets did, where the Jets were kind of interviewing everyone and their mother for their positions, it seemed like. We interviewed like nobody. And it seemed like Mike Brown or whoever just called up Al Golden and was like, hey, once you like finish this playoff run here with Notre Dame, you want to come back to Cincy and be our DC? He said yes. And we were just like, okay. I mean, like, it was between him and Patrick Graham. And I just think Al Golden, that familiarity type thing, that was just always going to win Al Golden the job with the Bengals. That's something the Bengals value. It was just obvious. First of all, let's start with Notre Dame's defense so that I think you guys are both kind of familiar with their defense and what they looked like. So, Chas, first, you tell me what your thoughts are about Notre Dame's defense.
Well, the thing was with Notre Dame, I feel like in some aspects, like if you look at like who they played this year and how well they did, a lot of these teams, like a lot of the bad teams, they did really, really well with, and a lot of the good teams they still held to under 21 points typically for the most part. Come playoffs, it obviously got a lot more intense, but like trying to remember it because I don't watch a lot of Notre Dame football, but from what I do know, the defense was pretty good this year. I mean, obviously the offense was the talking point. The offense is always the talking point for most teams, I feel like, but I feel like the Notre Dame defense was pretty solid this year. Golden did a good job, but Ohio State was just a good team. But I mean, if you look at Notre Dame as a whole, and like everything that they've accomplished this year, other than like the weird Northern Illinois loss that they had, but I don't know if you would necessarily blame the defense on that. I would probably blame the offense for not being able to produce more than 14 points against a team that somehow you were paying to beat. So, I mean, I don't understand that, but I don't really blame Golden for that. But as a whole for the defense, I mean, you look at some of the notable wins they had, and like a lot of these games they did really, really well. And I mean, even going up against like Georgia, for example, Georgia was known for like the high-powered team that they had, and they held them to 10 points in the Sugar Bowl. So I mean, the defense that Golden built was like really solid. But obviously, like I said, Ohio State is just a very strong team candidate this year, and Notre Dame, a lot of people kind of counted out way before the season continued on, and after the Northern Illinois loss, and then they ended up proving everybody wrong and going on to the championship. But nonetheless, it's a tough blow for Notre Dame, but for Cincinnati, it could be a really beneficial thing if he can orchestrate what he did in Notre Dame with you guys, and I think he can. It's just I as I mentioned, like I think with his help, I think he might be able to pick up some pieces as well to help orchestrate what he wants for the team. And what coach was he whenever he was in Cincinnati, like a couple years ago?
He was the linebackers coach. So he
was the coach then in like linebackers then?
I believe so. He developed like Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson during that Super Bowl run. So those are the guys he worked with.
So it could be beneficial then at that point. I mean, I feel like we were just talking about the line and whatnot, and if you want like a good rush and like good linebackers and stuff like that, that could be good. But obviously, if you want more than just that, Al Golden's probably going to also want to enhance your secondary as well. Which hopefully, with Golden, you can start playing Jordan Battle a little bit more. I feel like he doesn't get as much reps still. regardless. Maybe Jordan Battle will actually be developed into a great player. I know, like I said, he's a linebackers development player, but I think Jordan Battle could end up being really, really good if given the chance.
It'd be insane to use your young athletic players over your old unathletic vets. Like that's a strange concept.
Yeah,
Absolutely wild.
let's use the bridge players for the rookies too. And let's use them as our starters. Right.
Stan, do you have any thoughts on the Notre Dame defense that you noticed throughout the year?
I haven't watched too many Notre Dame games, but in the ones I had watched, I noticed they kind of they get better as the game progresses. And to me, when I see that in the team, the first thing I think of is, okay, that coach is going and making the right adjustments through the game, making the right adjustments at halftime. Now, I don't know how many games you guys have watched of that team, so maybe my small sample size is making me see it the wrong way. But I like that in the DC. I like a guy who can go let the use your game plan in the first half, but make the correct changes when you get out of the locker room going into the second half. And in every game I've watched, they do look so much better in that second half.
Yeah, I think he does adjust well, and I think a lot of people are being unfair to him because they're kind of using some recency bias after the national championship. They said he didn't adjust. I think he did adjust. It's just the Ohio State offense is just so athletic and so quick and powerful compared to the Notre Dame defense that it tells me more about the Notre Dame personnel than it does about Al Golden as a schemer, if that makes sense. And I just don't think that defense was built to beat Ohio State. I think that was probably the worst matchup they could have ran into in the national championship. And when you've got a guy like Jeremiah Smith, and Al Golden loves to run man coverage. He loves to run man coverage. I think he runs it at like a 60% rate. When you got Jeremiah Smith one-on-one, that's just not going to work, So that's just a situation where the teams were it wasn't complimentary football. They didn't play well against Ohio State. I'm not going to freak out about that. It was actually funny. There were some Bengals, I guess, influencers on X who were tweeting like, okay, guys, everyone's going to freak out about Al Golden during the national championship game. Just calm down. It'll be fine. And then everyone freaked out about Al Golden during the national championship game. And it was just like, we said this was going to happen. We knew this was going to happen. It's fine. It's a one game. Yes, Ohio State has a ton of NFL caliber talent, but I don't know that Notre Dame was necessarily an NFL caliber defense. They have guys who will obviously go to the NFL, but I don't know that they are completely there. The other thing people were concerned about with Al Golden, it seemed like, was his system is very similar to Lou Anarumo's. I don't think it's completely the same. Some people were saying it's completely the same, and I have to disagree there from what I've seen. Looking at Al Golden, he seems to hate the bend don't break method, which is good because I hate the bend don't break method. I understand the bend don't break method. I understand why you'd want to use it at times, but I would much rather just take the ball away. And I'm just an aggressive person by nature, I guess, in certain things like that. And I like Al Golden's theory. He's like, why would we let you go up the field when we can just take the ball away from you? And so they do a lot of heavy blitzes to put the quarterback under pressure. A lot of nickelback blitzes, it seems like. So Mike Hilton, if we re-sign him, that's something he's great at. He's not necessarily great at man coverage anymore, but he is phenomenal at blitzing and giving pressure, hitting running backs and quarterbacks behind the line. And then he likes his man coverage, like we talked about, and using that outside leverage and the out of bounds line, the sideline, as another defender. So definitely just trying to force turnovers, make quarterbacks feel nervous. The one big glaring thing that no one is talking about, though, is the defense isn't the greatest against the run. which is concerning because this is the AFC North. So teams run the ball. Teams love to run the ball in the AFC North. There, you got Derrick Henry, you got Lamar Jackson, you have Nick Chubb possibly, and Jerome Ford. You have whatever the Steelers are planning on doing with their running back situation. I'm sure they'll have a guy who can run the ball.
Excellent question. Najee Harris, who knows? I don't know. I mean, I'm curious though. I'm curious. Maybe we'll go and sign. I don't know. Hopefully Israel Abandakanda. That would be nice. Put him on our practice squad. Might as well. He never gets a shot.
They never play him.
Yeah.
But I like that aggressive nature of just take the ball away. You know, the more the ball is in Joe Burrow's hands, the more points we're going to put up. And that's what I like to see. More points on the board. He's averaging 33 points a game this year. Apparently, put up 40 something. I don't care. Let's just keep getting him. Do whatever he has to do to get him an MVP, because apparently he has to move the Earth and the Moon to do it. But I'm okay with this hire. It's not like something where I'm like jumping up and down excited that we got this guy, mainly because I've expected it for a month. But I'm okay with it. I'm not mad at it. There's worse hires we could have done, right? So, Stan, you wanted to talk about Liam Cohen, right?
Yeah, I just think it's a little telling looking at Liam Cohen stepping away from the spotlight here, saying he doesn't want to be considered for the head coaching positions, and signing a longer contract with the Bucks. To me, that shows a big change in his mentality because it means he's waiting for the right team. I think he's taking that Ben Johnson approach, where Ben Johnson waited, what is this, the third offseason now, when he finally finds a team he thinks is right. He thinks is right for him. And while, yeah, Ben Johnson was a bit annoying for that, I think it's going to work out better for him because now he's going to a team where he has weapons, he has a system he likes, and he's probably going to be a lot more successful. Looking around the league today, right? Gerard Mayo, a first-year head coach getting fired, it puts a lot of pressure on other guys who are going to be first-year head coaches. So I think for a guy like Liam Cohen, who has a lot of promise, was able to resurrect Baker Mayfield. I think there's a lot. There's a good decision in there. I think it was right for him to step back, and considering that there weren't really any attractive opportunities left, I like it from him. But that also means, yeah, there's not a lot of attractive opportunities left. So when you're looking at the Raiders, the Saints, I believe those are the only two, right? Looking for head coaches still.
Jaguars.
Oh no, the Jaguars. Yeah, so
and
it's
the
like
Cowboys.
Okay, so four. There's four spots, and the only candidate who I feel, good about really is Mike McCarthy. Outside of him, there's just so many question marks with the remaining candidates. Liam Cohen was one of my favorites, but now he's gone.
Well, first of all, I got to give Dave Canales his flowers. He resurrected Baker Mayfield. So and if you want to go even further back, maybe even Sean McVay, but I'll give it to Dave Canales. He resurrected Baker Mayfield. So, but I do think Liam Cohen is a very good offensive coordinator, and that the Buccaneers will be very happy to keep him around. Yeah, it is interesting because I think he was also supposed to have a second interview with the Jaguars today, and then they just didn't. Just dropped out. So I don't know if he was in any talks with other teams. I don't know what happened with the Jaguars that made him say, never mind. Maybe Todd Bowles came and talked to him and was like, hey, we'd really like to keep you around. Let's get you a pay raise and let's run it back. Okay. And that's what they're going to try to do. It'll be interesting to see how long he stays, maybe just one more season with the Buccaneers, but we'll see what happens. Just, do you have any thoughts on Mr. Cohen?
No, I mean, I think it'll be really interesting to see him return to Tampa. I mean, I think the thing about Tampa is they're good, but they're not like exceptionally good. So I think by him staying, maybe it'll help just a little bit, just with what they're building, what they're hoping to build in the next couple of years or year or whatever. I mean, obviously Godwin being injured for the rest of the season, having that season-ending injury was like a pretty big blow to Tampa as a whole. But going into this season, hopefully Mike Evans can continue with his productivity. You can have Chris Godwin come back, as well as having the running backs and whatnot, like Bucky Irving, who really stepped up this season, as well as the pieces that you're missing, and you could turn yourself into like a really good team, because this team isn't bad. I mean, we've watched them play. They're not that bad of a team. I think that they have potential, but we'll see what time will tell, I guess, next season. But I think it'll be interesting with him staying. I think there's a lot of hope.
To take it in a slightly different direction, I think you're not seeing one of the big positives for the Steelers in this chess. That now that you have one of the top offensive minds as a head coach candidate leaving, maybe a different guy, and Arthur Smith, moves up in some teams' rankings.
Ooh.
Yeah. I'm hoping. Listen, I think that Arthur Smith is a really, really good candidate for head coach. I do. I think he showed a lot with the Steelers, and I think that they should any team that wants him should 100% jump on the opportunity
Before it's too late.
Yeah, before it's too late. I mean, he's going to get picked up by somebody. I mean, you saw what he did in Atlanta. I mean, he'll make your tight ends into running backs and do all kinds of cool things. So, I mean, it's a fascinating watch. But yeah, I'm curious to see if anything happens with Arthur Smith, though. Nonetheless, glad you brought that up, Stan. I totally forgot about that. So, what teams remain then? What teams could possibly pick up Arthur Smith? Anybody? Because
Jaguars, Cowboys, Raiders, Saints.
I think the Saints as well.
Mm.
I think the Saints are probably the big one I'm thinking, because I don't think the Cowboys would go for him.
No.
The Raiders, no one wants to go to the Raiders, so maybe they just stuck with him. But the Saints, to me, seem like the best fit for him, because the Saints, you have such a terrible contract situation. You're not going to be able to, sign great guys anytime soon. So maybe you just say, hey, we're going to take the retread on Arthur Smith.
I mean, there's that chance that I just think it's funny that, like, Atlanta, they went 7-10 multiple years with Arthur Smith, and then this season they go 8-9 with new coach. It's like, oh, big change there, big change. So,
but they also have a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, but he didn't start until the end of the season.
But he actually looks good,
I know, but like at the beginning of the season, they had Kirk Cousins.
That's true.
My point is that, like, I get it, because like last year and the years before that they had Desmond, but
Desmond and Taylor Heineke.
This head coach had a lot of chances for success, and he blew it.
I don't know that he blew it.
He didn't blow it. I'm kidding. The team wasn't that bad. I mean, 8-9 isn't bad, considering they were not that far out of possibly even getting the division. So
Raheem Morris turned around their defense after the bye week. When he took over that Falcons defense, he turned that defense into the defense I thought they were going to be. So put some respect on Coach Morris's name.
Okay. No, I
Derek Carr probably had a career year this season. I think outside of the injury, I'm pretty sure statistically it was probably his best performance.
I'm pretty sure that's not true.
I'll put money on it.
This was Derek Carr's best season leading up to the end. Like, if we projected his average numbers out to a full season, it would be his best season.
I think if you use like QBR or like quarterback rating, something like that, I think it would be his best.
Are you talking about like with the Saints?
Yeah. No.
Oh,
his
okay.
entire career.
His entire career. He had that crazy season with the Raiders where he was like MVP level. Hang on.
No, this was it, man. I'll pull it up.
I'm pulling up. Where was that season? I wish we had a chat. Chat could let me know. Yeah. Okay. In 2020, he had a 101.4 QB rating, which was 0.4 better than this year's. Mic drop.
Okay, so basically the same. So still, I guess more of my point was Derek Carr looked pretty good. I mean, starting the season, there were talks about him like it was him and Sam Darnold, the MVP candidates, in like week 3 or whatever. And Derek Carr looked pretty good with the Saints. So just saying, just saying.
The Saints randomly went 2-0 that week, then lost like the rest of their games.
I'm just saying, he looked good.
So do you think they should stick with Derek Carr then?
I think they have to rebuild everything. I mean, it's because of the contract situation. You're not going to be in a win now. You're not going to be a win now team for like 2 years at least. So you might as well invest into getting younger players. Get some draft picks, rebuild the team. I don't think sticking with Derek Carr will do them any favors as their number one, at least.
Chus, have you seen anything from Arthur Smith this year other than the fact that you don't like him? You think he would make a great head coach?
Not with the Steelers. But then again, it's really not that easy to do anything with the Steelers right now. So, I guess I can give him his flowers for doing what he could with the team that he was given, and for the horrendous play calling on the defense, which, Mike Tomlin has a huge hand in. So, but yeah, I also think Arthur Smith calling a run, 2 runs back to back every single game. Everybody commented that it's just literally just a halfback toss, or just it's literally a halfback play every single play for the first 2 plays, and then they pass and they go 3 and out. It literally looks like a Matt Canada offense, just with a little bit more pizzazz.
That's the Zach Taylor special.
Right. Nate Hackett did that too.
Yeah, I could probably
run screen, baby. Run screen down the field.
Yeah, I could do that, honestly. I could probably figure out a playbook at that point. But I think they're utilizing a very similar playbook. And I've talked about this a lot through December and stuff like that. But I don't think he's a bad guy. I think he worked well with what he had, honestly. But I just don't know if he's the right fit for Pittsburgh. But I look back on the old days of the Steelers, and I sometimes wish that we had somebody like Todd Haley still, so who got fired. Everyone called for him to be fired, and I don't know. I think he's probably one of the best offensive coordinators we've had in the last 10 years. So, and I'm sure there's a Steelers fan out there that probably disagrees with that, but I don't know. I just think I miss Todd Haley, because those Killer Bee days were special. They were special, and I don't know if we're ever going to see that again.
Just getting a little emotional.
I am honestly. I went back and I watched a video. Somebody. It wasn't that video, or it wasn't a video. It was the video you sent me, Josh, about the Mike Tomlin hate and stuff like that, and really put things into more of a perspective that this team is just never going to win. Not in my 20s.
It's kind of crazy to me, like the whole him not having a coaching tree thing is what kind of surprised me the most.
Well, he doesn't have a coaching tree, but he also hasn't done anything really in playoffs since the Super Bowl runs, pretty much. Looking at it from that perspective, they like I said, they beat freaking Kansas City in the divisional round with only field goals, and it's same thing that we're dealing with now. It's no different than it was 10 years ago. So I don't know.
I'm sorry to make you relive that, Chus.
It's okay. I just know that I'm just gonna have to bandwagon somebody else. I'm gonna have to be just jumping all over the place with just different teams. And when the Jets end up being really, really good, I'll bandwagon them. And when the Bengals are good, I'll wear my Jordan Battle shirt. And then right now I'm just rooting for anybody but Kansas City in the Super Bowl. So,
okay.
So yeah. Because there's my one friend Connor, shout out Connor. He said that he might become a Washington fan because of Jaden Daniels. So Steelers fans we're losing hope here. So we're just not seeing anything. I know, Stan. I know it's rough. I know, but because you guys haven't even
Look at
been
the
to
Jets,
playoffs.
man.
I know you guys haven't even been to playoffs in like 12
Steelers
years.
fans are so fair weather. They
Listen,
they go a decade without a Super Bowl and they freak out.
A decade without a Super Bowl. A decade without a Super Bowl. We've gone a decade without winning a playoff game. I don't care about Super Bowls. I just want to win a game. I just want to win a one.
Stan's gone almost 2 decades without appearing in one.
No, isn't it like only 12 seasons? He's not at 2 yet. He's
It's
only
at 14, I thought.
Oh, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Either way, he's not at the 20-year mark yet. The Jets are almost there. They're almost there. And listen.
Dude,
Their last playoff appearance was 2010 when they lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers in the AFC Championship.
Hey, that was a great game. That was a great game. But also, the only reason it was a great game was because actually, I don't really remember it because I didn't watch it. So I never watched it. So I have nothing.
Great game, fantastic game. I have no idea what happened.
Hey, I mean, Sanchez was like one of the 8 rookie quarterbacks to ever start in a playoff game or like a AFC champion or conference championship game in the last like 20 years or whatever.
And he's one of even fewer to win it. Because he won his right? Yeah. I think there's only like 5 before Jaden Daniels. I saw it recently too.
Yeah.
But I was just gonna say, like, I was watching I don't know if you guys know the Kevin James sitcom King of Queens, but I had nothing better to do, and I canceled most of my streaming services because the NFL season is basically done, and I ended up watching King of Queens, and there's like 17 jokes in the first 2 episodes about how bad the Jets suck, and that was 1998.
Oh wow!
I think Home Alone, there's like a joke or two about how the Jets suck, and that's what, early 2000s. So it's the one thing that brings all this media together.
I'll stand. I think there's only one thing to do, and I think that's for me to go on Madden and rebuild the Jets. I think I'm gonna have to bring them to the Super Bowl. I've done a lot with Carolina, but I think it's time for me to move on to my next chapter. I built Carolina into a powerhouse. Unfortunately, most recently we came up short in the Super Bowl to, ironically enough, the Kansas City Chiefs. But somehow I managed to add Micah Parsons to the team. So now Carolina is going to be unstoppable. So, Stan, I'm going to virtually make the Jets really, really good.
My best, like, hard level, whatever that is, on the Jets was I made it to the Super Bowl. I lost to the Cowboys, and I had Saquon Barkley.
That's funny.
Okay. Well, I think on that note, I'm going to go into my spiel.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. We can be found anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube at No Butts Show. Our social media pages are NoButts_show on Instagram. My Twitter is Josh_Butts_2001. And if you would like to reach us, you can email us at boldnewspodcast2. That's the number 2 at gmail.com. Finally, our spread shop will be in the description, so check out the merch. Once again, if you enjoyed today's show, like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, go do something nice for someone.